So I'm Neil Goldman, and from Relationship Science, and so just got a couple of slides, and I'll tell you a little bit about what we're up to. So my background is I've been a banker at Lehman Brothers, M&A, living the dream, and in '98 started a company called Capital IQ, which some of you who are in the finance business may have come into contact with. It's investment banking analyst in a box, and people thought I was insane to try to systematize the dark magic of M&A, but built this product against all odds in the face of large competitors. Had raised $40 million from banks to do it, and then ultimately sold that business to the Standard & Poor's division, McGraw-Hill. So if I hadn't had enough torture, I started this business 3.5 years ago called Relationship Science, which is another extremely large-scale information product. And I was very fortunate that a lot of people from Capital IQ joined me and raised a large sum of money, and it took about 3 years and 800 people to build this product I'm about to show you. It's a institutional quality, large-scale product, and I'll tell you a little bit. We've added over 300 clients in our first eight months. So basically what this product is essentially we've mapped the world of, forgive the terms, influential, decision-making, relevant people across an array of sectors. Business, finance, nonprofit, government, society, etc. So all of the organizations, all of the people that are highly relevant to them, and again, that's an ever-growing universe, and we link them all together. What do they have in common? Now, this is not a social network, no user-contributed data. This is all data that we have aggregated from publicly available sources, and that we basically disaggregate, rip apart, and reaggregate in very useful ways. So just a little, kind of interesting history, and there's some entrepreneurs here. I mean, how I evolved in these two businesses, how they relate, is I was a banker, so I understood the pain points intimately, and that's really where Capital IQ came from. Once Capital IQ was commercialized, I became a client development person, and so really upon reflection of that experience is how the idea of what would the ultimate system have been had I had it to sort of develop a business, and that's how relationship science evolved. So basically we have clients, I guess this is being televised at some point, so I won't say all of them, but very large, some of the largest firms across banking, private equity, hedge funds, consulting, law firms, schools, nonprofits, and so we've been very fortunate that there's a lot of interest in our products. So we also have a great group of investors. These are really people who built businesses, entrepreneurs. We're very untraditionally financed, so it's almost all individuals, except Salesforce is a small investor in Hearst, but folks who've built big businesses. And when they saw this, they said, hey, if other people could have access to this product, which is basically how I've built my business, I know people would want it. So with that, I'll kind of just dive into the product a little bit and give you a demo. Okay, so, I could pull up here from a person or company perspective most anybody, probably everybody in this room. But I'll pick out a person out of thin air, and we'll take a look at their profile. Okay. And I think I might have lost internet connectivity, so give me a moment. I'm just going to go on my own Wi-Fi here. Okay, let's see how we do. Okay, so I'm going to I'll pick up this person. Okay, so I don't know this person personally. Okay, and let's say I was going to meet him, and this might be someone who's relevant to everyone in this audience. He's an investor in media companies, and so I'm going to show you a very extensive profile on this person that is constantly updated and maintained. We have a what I'd call a data factory, primarily in India, and so. This person has never seen this product. I've never met them, but we've identified 900 people that have a level of relationship with them. And interesting, so I'm a user. I kind of should back up, Neil Goldman, and I've synced up my relationships with this system. So what this means is of the 3 million people in the database, I personally have some level of relationship with 1,940. And so what's interesting at the top part is who do I know in common with them? So if you sort of look at the overlap of my 1940 and their 931, I know 28 people in common. And so, a core problem this answers is, how do I get to this person, okay? Where I'm going to meet this person, who can put in a good word? And so I'm on the left and he's on the right, and these are all sort of people I know in between. So if I were to take a look at Larry Summers, who's one of our investors, and I were to say, oh, they're on the board of Teach for America together. Okay, and if I were to keep on going and I were to say, oh, Alan Patrikoff, what do they have in common? Oh, they're both on the board of the Paley Center for Media. And I could keep on going, on and on and on, and sort of once you build a database this robust, there's literally dozens of ways to get to folks. And it's not only just me. What we do is we link together inside a company colleagues. So, okay, I look through my own, but who do I work with and who do they know? And so it may be very interesting. The Katie who I work with knows Richard, and Richard has this particular relationship through Yankees Entertainment. So moving on to if I was to meet this person and not really have a lot of background, and by the way, this is my iPhone. If I met them here, I could look this up in 2 minutes. I could kind of mouse through all the people that we've identified that they know, family members, what his spouse is doing. We only really cover people who are public figures inside themselves, what his father-in-law is doing, went to Seattle University, was 71 at Stanford Business School, his current business Intermedia, his prior work experiences. We have boards and committees, public and private companies that he's affiliated with, current or prior. We have nonprofits and every single thing that we're looking at is its own entity that I can go click into. So it's one big, graph of companies and organizations and people. So I can also, we've tracked down a large number of his donations. And so if, to really understand what makes somebody tick, here is, a bunch of donations, the date, the amount, the recipient, but also the meta cause. And so you can kind of figure out what you might have in common with them. Moving on down, private investments he's made as an individual that's publicly known, public holdings, awards, honors, down to honorary degrees. And if I was to go into any one of these, so let's say I was meeting with him at his particular venture firm, I could learn a whole bunch about his venture firm, right? In addition to the who I know other than him, we also have transactions. So every transaction is an entity, and we try to track down also who are all the different people who worked on the deal, and also the different people who actually worked in this particular transaction. So we go to extreme lengths to sort of figure out how people might be interrelated. So we also have who's advised his company, because that might be interesting, because maybe my law firm is also his law firm, and that would be interesting. We've had people who've advised him, investments the companies have made, who are the LPs of his fund, and on and on and on. So some very interesting information. So, this kind of idea of figuring out how to get to someone, we can run a path from me to any person, me to any company, two companies to each other. I can create a list of my prospects and match it up to my clients, and sort of just on and on. And I'll just give you 2 examples. I don't know Tim Geithner, but I'll pull him up. And if I wanted to get to him, what would I do? So again, because I've synced up my relationships, and I'll map it up to the known relationships of Tim. So I'm on the left, Tim's on the right. Larry comes up again, but I'll pull up someone who's not Larry. So looking down, other investors of ours here, Andrew Tisch, and he's on the board of the Economic Club in New York with him, and I don't even know what that is, but that's great, right? And so I can kind of keep on looking and overlay my art on this science and figure out who I'm going to ask for that introduction. Kind of give you an M&A context, which is doesn't have to do with me, but if I was to map up 2 companies, and let's say Amazon to Starbucks. So I'm some sort. Let's say I'm a consultant. And I think they should be doing some partnership together, and so I can map together these 2 companies. And so on the left, you'll find people at Amazon. On the right, people at Starbucks, and I can map everything from these people had both been on the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace to these 2 sort of semi-senior people are both currently on the board of the YMCA of Greater Seattle, down to every intricate thing one could sort of imagine or tie together. So Jeff Bezos, his personal investment company Explorer, invested in Twitter, and with Jack Dorsey, who is the founder, and Jack's on the board of Square with Howard Schultz, and et cetera, et cetera. So I could figure out a whole lot of stuff. Power search. I could search through this whole database to figure out who I might want to talk to. So there's a lot of people selling enterprise stuff here in the audience, and so you can imagine perhaps someone went to Duke. I'm a business development person, and I went to Duke, and I'm selling my product into people in the oil and gas industry, and I'm looking for companies, greater than $1 billion, and basically I could cross-reference this as I could cross-reference every other piece of data in the set, and I'll come up with a list. But not just the list, which is 37. Interestingly, I'm 1 degree away from 20 of these. And so what does that mean? This means it's a rainy Friday and I'm trying to generate some activity. So Gordon fits my criteria because he's on the board of 2 companies that meet that criteria. He went to Duke, and I have a whole array of people who can introduce me. The same with Philip, the same with John, the same with Ronald, and so I could create out of nothing some opportunity. I can also save all of this to a list. I can create lists. I can run paths from one list to another list, etc. So this is not really a, we have a lot of nonprofit clients, big and small, but, so people, who are raising money. So I could basically, if this was a nonprofit I was personally on the board of, and I wanted to find people who could donate more than $25,000, who had not previously donated, I could come up with a very large list, but where it gets interesting is where I intersect it with my own relationships. So we'll give this a second to run, and here you go. Big list, but then 500 of my own people that I know, as opposed to the full 1,900 I don't have to bother with. And so what this is doing here is this is saying, I got 3 minutes, they said. Here's all the different things that Suzanne has done that's of interest that might demonstrate proclivity. I could search, so some of your investors here, if I was raising money for a private equity fund in renewable energy, basically we can traverse the whole LPGP portfolio company chain and figure out who are the likely suspects and who do I know. And so, who would have thought that, Bank of America has invested in 10 GPs that all invest in renewable energy businesses. So I'll skip visiting a city, but who do I know in Chicago doing a certain thing? So this is a product that some investors use, which is if I was thinking about investing in a company and I wanted to cross-reference, say, who are the clients of this company or its competitor or who holds the stock of this company. So very simply, we kind of mash together who owns the stock with who you know, and here you go. I know 7 people hold this stock. And so I could certainly call my friend Catherine a good friend and talk to her. She runs a firm that owns 0.5% of Apple, and that would be an interesting conversation. Last thing I'll just touch on is we just released we're actually releasing tomorrow out of beta, but my news on my relationships. And so basically, not just news on my relationships. These are all people I know. So it's giving me pinpointed news. You can totally disambiguate between Neil Goldman, who's the general counsel at Skype, and this Neil Goldman. And so it's giving me this in a real-time basis, but we also do a lot of other things. We create news out of things that aren't news. So for instance, when someone buys and sells stock, it's not really a headline, but because we're capturing as a database change, we can write a headline. And this may be very interesting if you know this person or you are a wealth manager or whatever it might be. And you do a whole lot of other stuff, but last thing I'd show you is the ability to kind of zoom in and out on a person. So I'll pick someone who's on my board, but if I was going to talk to Ken Langone, and I wouldn't, news just on him, maybe he's mentioned, maybe he's not, but I can open up this aperture and it can give me news on all the things he's involved in. Because we've sort of built this whole graph, I can see what's happening with, GeekNet, that's interesting. He's actually chairman of the board, and what's happening at NYU, etc. So that's a 50 billion foot overview of our product. Thank you. Q&A. Delighted. Yes, and then I'll come over here.
Yes, I'll start with the obvious question that most people ask all the time, the comparison to LinkedIn, and what are the advantages and disadvantages,
sure.
things you do and they don't do, and vice versa.
Sure. I mean, we're totally different.
Thanks.
Sure, but thanks. No, over half of the people we cover are not active socially anywhere, right? I mean, so this is a sort of a very different universe of people, and it's one that we curate, and we curate it algorithmically that are kind of identifying people for inclusion. And so we're not sort of constrained by who chooses to contribute. You'd also see, I think there's a whole array of detailed data that even if someone who's contributing in a social way might not. That's, again, we've done it in a very editorially appropriate way, but it's very useful as you who might be approaching this person. We are not just tracking people. We are doing, you saw incredibly, deep profiles on companies, transactions, all sorts of things, stock sales. So it's very, very different. We're not a social network, and that's our product. We're an institutional quality product. So I did say this gentleman.
Well, I had the same questions.
Okay, so we're done. So here, gentleman in the blue shirt.
So, the first profile which you showed, the last donation was 2011, and that was only one, whereas the
Yeah.
profile made more than 10 donations in 2010.
Yeah. So
or
that
2010. So I'm trying to understand how
sure.
old is this data, or how
It's very good.
recent is this data?
Yeah.
And
No,
how
it's
much time does it take, and where do you pull the data sources from?
Sure.
Is it publicly available sites, or
Sure. It's a good point, and that's actually the first time I ever pulled up that profile, and someone had mentioned his name to me earlier today, so I actually brought it up randomly. So, how we get that data is very complicated. So you can source some data from different places, but ultimately, if you ever go to anything nonprofit, in the back is people gave in various ranges, and so, that gets published at the end of 2012, gets published, the annual report in the middle of 2012. And so I know we have 2013 donations there for nonprofits for whom that information has sort of been published. I happen to pick someone who might not have had that. So we get what's as up to date as is publicly available, and we tie it all together. And a person that I did a demo for 10 minutes ago had 2013 donations just that were publicly accessible. So we're updating all the time, whatever is available. Yes. Yes.
All right. So I understand that you're able to determine how strong the relationship is with a common connection, but are you able to rank and determine how strong the other side of that relationship is?
Absolutely. And I apologize, I didn't really give a good demo of that, but absolutely. So we've filed over 35 patents. We've received a few. A lot of mathematical underpinnings. So actually, it's a great point I didn't demo. We're taking into account an array of factors between two people to weight that relationship, and we do have a mathematical score. We show it as strong, medium, weak in our system, but it deals with a bazillion factors that I probably wouldn't say into a camera that's going to be posted. But yes, absolutely. We show that, and we show how it's why and how. Yes.
How do you keep all the data up to the current status? I take your former firm. Lehman has now transitioned into Nomura. Parts of Lehman has transitioned into Barclays Bank. How do you bring it up to the current status? Like United Airlines at some point was called Allegiance. Who the heck would remember that United Airlines or Continental Allegiance is all interconnected?
Sure. We have sort of two questions rolled into one. So, the back end of this product to collect and aggregate this data is, I'd say, at least 50 times more complex than what I just showed you. And so we're collecting data from tens of thousands of sources, but, the Federal Election Commission database of donations, my mother's there, and she doesn't belong in the system. So all of that is kind of coming in, and we have over 400 full-time researchers who are integrating that data. And it's kind of pulling it up very ergonomically, yes, yes, no, no, or sometimes it can be actually, understood to be the same algorithmically and goes in. You brought up a very extreme, one of the most complicated questions is the corporate tree, and so that is something we have an editorial team. I mean, Capital IQ, some of you know, is sort of a good standard in terms of M&A, corporate extinguishment, and regeneration and merger. And so we try to do it in a way though that is useful to the end user. You can get overly complicated. And you talk about Lehman. I worked at Lehman. It's 50 entities. Lehman Brothers Holdings, Lehman Brothers Europe, Lehman Brothers, and we try to basically come up with a way that's useful for the end user, not overly complexified. That's a word. Yes.
I really like your product, but most glaringly obvious to me was how does it become actionable? Are you integrated with CRM? Where do I find the person's contact information?
Sure.
If I look for Henry Callis to find out that I went to school with someone, how do I make that? Sure.
So we are integrated into some CRM systems. As I mentioned, Salesforce is an investor, and so we're heavily integrated to that product. Here's the story. We're not a contact database, so our universe is not generally, we're helping accelerate the way relationships exist in a real senior way today. And so, if you and I were friends, you'd call me and say, Neil, could you introduce me to Henry? And if you had something useful to show him, I would introduce you to Henry. And that's how we got 300 clients and how we got those people as investors. And that's, it's not a contact database.
But can your application integrate with my CRM
Yes.
and surface those relationships
Yes.
on the contact?
Yes. 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 That in the back.
Well, if it does do that CRM integration, wouldn't it be a privacy issue? I mean, what if the person doesn't want you having their email?
I don't understand what your question is.
So, like, if this data you're surfacing is public, that's one thing, but linking it to an email address is...
But we're not in a CRM. If you're this law firm, for instance,
Yeah.
everything that you do with the system and is secure to you. So this is built to, an institutional security model. So if it's integrated to your CRM, which the rest of the world can't see, and you can see parts of this product right next to a person, and their email is in your CRM because you put it there, that's, we're not putting it into the system for others to see. Over there? Yeah.
Yes, how does one opt out of this?
We have fortunately not had that problem, and I think that we've collected data in a very, in a way that is concerned about privacy and editorial sort of rules, and so it's really a professional business development product, and people who are in the flow and have and they're mentioned online and their photo is taken and they're donating money and they're being photographed in the news. I mean, we're just aggregating what's publicly available, and actually we exclude a lot of things that are publicly available that might be anything other than just informational in a contextual way. So
Time for
yes,
one more.
One more. Go ahead.
Can I validate my data? Like, can I go in and look at my profile and say, that's wrong or that's right?
Well, what happens is actually different to your question, we also offer a service. So if you're a client, you were to say, meeting these 10 people next week, please make sure they're profiled. We do that. So in the same way, though, if you're a user and you said, I noticed that something might be not correct about my friend Joe or about me, there's a button and you can tell us and we would look into that and do our best to make it perfect. That's it? Cool?
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everyone.